Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Classical Conversations. Today, we're going to be previewing our performances next weekend, Strings on Parade with Jun Iwasaki. I'm Jess Slais. I'm the Vice President of Artistic Administration at your Nashville Symphony, and I'm so excited to be joined today by our concertmaster and leader for this program, Jun Iwasaki. Jun, how are you today?
I'm doing well. After some technical issues, we're good to go, and I think I'm looking forward to having this chat via internet to talk about this program that I'm really excited that it came to fruition and to be leading.
Great. Well, yeah, thanks for working that out, and we're really glad to be able to share your thoughts and plans for this program with everyone today. So I'm so excited. This is such a special experience that we're going to have with you next week, where you're not just the soloist and just the concertmaster, but also the leader of this program and designed this program. So maybe let's talk a little bit first about your role as concertmaster, where you're sort of constantly sort of the lieutenant and second leader for everyone, but also in this role where absent the traditional conductor, everyone really is looking to you. Can you tell us a little bit about how that's similar and different from every other week?
Yeah, it's actually, if you go back and actually look at what the definition of the concertmaster back when it was used in Europe, it was the Kapellmeister. It's actually, it almost works perfectly for this program because in the absence of a conductor, which is how many chamber orchestras performed early, back when Mozart was writing and Haydn was writing, they didn't have conductors yet. And so traditionally the first chair violinist would lead the concerts, sometimes by standing and playing and kind of conducting with the bow, but probably more often than not, just from the chair. And so that name stuck. The concertmaster name stuck, even with the introduction of conductors, which was it was out of necessity because pieces were getting larger and larger, and the big symphonic works had so many people on stage that it was just an easier avenue to kind of have someone guiding traffic. But my role during a normal orchestral week is, like you said, it's kind of be the lieutenant. I always like to relate it to football, since we're in Nashville and we have the Titans, and so I always say, if you know football, I would say a good analogy would be that the conductor is kind of like the coach and comes up with the plays and the ideas and how we're going to achieve victory with this concert. And I would probably think of the concertmaster as the quarterback, the person on field leading the team, leading the orchestra, with the ideas that they've talked about with the coaches, and following the coach's lead or the conductor's lead, but to really be that leader on the field, on stage. And so if I can do that, if I can make the conductor's job easier, then I have achieved what I set out to do. And it's always fun. Every week has its own challenges, and whether it's working with a guest conductor or working with a composer that we've never worked with before, or even just pieces and with different ideas, because you never want to play the same thing twice. And so my job is, there's multiple little things that I'm doing aside from just playing the first violin part and trying to lead my violin section, but trying to, without using words, but a lot of times with just gestures, help the orchestra kind of also see what the conductor is trying to do at the same time.
Right. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, it's a slightly longer career length than quarterbacks, so that's fortunate.
I'm hoping, yeah.
So how is it going to look when you're leading? Will you be leading from the chair and taking that tact with us next week?
Yeah, I think, well, the two pieces that kind of bookend the concert, I will definitely be sitting in the chair, and within the rehearsal time, I'll talk And what I love about what I'm really looking forward to is just being able to talk to the orchestra. Normal when I really can't, but kind of in the role of the leader, I can ask questions, or I can say, hey, what do you guys want? What feels more comfortable? Would you like me to start you, or are you comfortable starting yourselves? I think these are all questions and conversations I look forward to having, being the first time really we've done something like this here. The Piazzolla piece, because I will be soloing, I will be standing separate from the orchestra. So a lot of the leading that I can't do will be done by, I believe Gerald will be sitting concertmaster for that piece. And so I've already spoken to him about certain things, and that's oftentimes happens if there's some conversations before the rehearsals start, just to kind of make sure we're on the same page.
Sure. Well, that's an interesting point you make too about the rest of the orchestra and your opportunity to communicate with them. It's going to sort of change the dynamic too of them, to sort of the cycle of feedback. You'll all be colleagues working together to build this, which is a little bit different from a typical week too.
Right. And, I think it's important to be able to have that kind of open lines of communication on stage. It's not going to be like a quartet rehearsal where there's a lot of talking and sometimes arguing. I've been in uncomfortable situations in some quartets, but that's normal. It's not unnatural for that to happen, because you have to try different ideas, and you have to kind of win your argument sometimes of why you think one thing should be played another way. But aside from that, I think the overall atmosphere, hopefully next week, will just be fun. I want everyone to just have a good time, and to not be afraid to ask questions or request something, or if we have time, if someone wants to try something again, because they just want to make sure that they feel comfortable doing it the way we're doing it. So it'll be maybe a lot of trial and error. I hope it's more natural. I think I tried to pick pieces, and we can talk about how I picked the pieces, but I tried to pick pieces that definitely the Dvořák, everyone has at least probably played once or twice, or hopefully more than that. And so it's just really putting stuff together and coming together on a musical idea that we all like.
Great. Yeah, let's talk about your program. I remember now, 6 months ago or so, 8 months ago, when Giancarlo and I were planning out the season and navigating this really unusual time, very quickly this idea of you leading a program came up. So I know you guys had a conversation. Where did it go from there as you started to think about what you wanted to put together?
It started off with, this is something that I've always wanted to do, and so I'm happy that it was able to finally happen. It's unfortunate the reasons for which it kind of just fell into our laps with COVID and the pandemic, but I try to find solace in knowing that this will, I think, improve the orchestra immensely, and if it is successful, it could become a tradition to do maybe. And we've done conductorless weeks before with guests. I think we did one with Naja Sonnenberg a few years past, but we did have a conductor for a few pieces, I think.
She got injured. It was a little bit of an unusual.
She was injured. That's right. She was injured.
It's been a conductor, but the goal was originally
right.
Program.
Yeah. But I think it's always helpful for especially string players to have that time to hone in their chamber music skills on stage. But yeah, Giancarlo came to me and asked if I would be first interested in doing something like this, and I of course said yes. I can't wait. And then we had to talk about kind of stipulations on program lengths. And as many of you know, concerts have been without intermission and trying to keep it under 90 minutes. And so that that changes programming ideas immensely. And so I had to try to find pieces that would go together, but also not fringe on going over time in music, actual music. So I immediately knew I wanted to do the Piazzolla. It's been something that it's been on my bucket list to do with Nashville Symphony. And I thought, what a perfect opportunity. It's not that long. I think it's very accessible to audience members. And it happens also to be his 100th anniversary of his birth. And so I thought, what a perfect way to kind of be a soloist and have the orchestra play without a conductor, and to feature these tangos in essence to the audience. Ironically, originally I wanted to do Strum.
Right, the Jesse Montgomery piece the
one that we did on Classical 1, and I submitted a couple programs, and Strum was on them, and then I got an email from Giancarlo, or a phone call, I forget. He's like, actually, I want to conduct that one. And so he took it away from me. But I did some more research and found a beautiful piece by Philip Herbert. And I had talked to another friend of mine who had done something like this earlier during the pandemic, when they were doing lots of chamber music, and obviously the Nashville Symphony is a champion of of contemporary music. I almost said American, but Philip Herbert is from England, so it doesn't quite check all the boxes that we try to do. But I wanted to feature a living composer, and I think once I listened to it before I actually knew what it was about, and just from listening to it, I thought it was a beautiful piece. And then I realized that the full title is Elegy in Memoriam of Stephen Lawrence, who was a victim of a gruesome crime in England. I think it happened in the early 90s. I want to say 93.
Yes. And
I think the news kind of, it took a long time for it to kind of, for the trial and all this stuff. And I think with all the news going through it, and it was a racially motivated attack, is what they finally finalized on the jury. Philip wrote this piece kind of in response to all the chaos that was going on. And so he wrote this piece in 99, I think, and it scored for a smaller group. And what I did a little research, and I believe one thing that I came across is that it actually is written for 18 players, one for every year of Stephen Lawrence's life. And so I thought that was really, it was touching and powerful at the same time. And so I threw that idea out, and on paper, I put the idea on paper and passed it on, and was happy that it was approved for the program that we were doing next week. And I was lucky enough to actually talk to him too, a few days ago. Yeah. And we Zoomed, and he was just very, very happy that I had programmed it. And he was, unfortunately, he can't be here for it due to travel restrictions, but he was very, very candid and saying that he trusts that we will do a very, very nice job of doing, the piece justice. So I look forward to, I think this will be a premiere for the Nashville Symphony.
It certainly is, yeah. And like you said, a really beautiful piece in that English tradition, but with a tremendous depth of meaning and powerful, story behind it in honor of this young man.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the Piazzolla, which comes up next. Is this your first time performing this? I know you wanted to bring it here, but have you been the soloist before?
I have, and it actually happened kind of happenstance again, just during COVID. I was lucky enough to do it in October of 2020, when things were really looking bad everywhere. But the festival that I usually go to in the summer, the mainly Mozart festival, was doing outdoor concerts, kind of in a drive-through setting. So we played for cars, and they've got a huge parking lot. It was at the fairgrounds, and they got this huge parking lot, big stage. They had screens on either side, and then people just, there was cones. So when you got in, you just pulled up, and they, I think, set it up to where you could roll down your windows, and it was San Diego, so it was still nice outside. It wasn't cold yet, and so you could roll down your windows. You could sit in, some people had brought trucks, and they could sit in the back of their pickups or their SUVs, open the trunk. So we had a speaker system, but they also utilized the FM, like an FM radio station, to broadcast if you wanted to have your windows closed and listen to the music through your own speakers in your car. But we did kind of the traditional performance of Vivaldi Four Seasons with the Piazzolla Four Seasons kind of in between all of them to give feedback. So there were 4 other soloists that each did an individual season of Vivaldi, and I was the rebel that kept going in between and playing these tangos.
Wow.
But so to answer your question, I've played this many times as an orchestra member, in a chamber orchestra, but this will only be my second time actually playing this version, and we can talk about that a little bit about that. But this version of the Four Seasons will only be my second time doing it.
Yeah, I love this piece. I've known it for a long time too, and I mean Piazzolla, of course, is the tango master, and the nuevo tango that he developed in his style, and all the instruments in his band, and himself as a bandoneon player, accordion player. There's just such great sonic things that happen, and then this is for string orchestra. But one of my favorite things about it are all of the things that get created on string instruments that are just fabulous for the ears. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, as you said, Piazzolla was known for his tango writing, and he wrote a lot of the stuff for his own band. And that's also true for these pieces. And he took his time writing these. I think he wrote them in the late 60s. And he wrote it for his quintet. And like you said, he played the bandoneon, which is kind of like an accordion. And I think it was for, piano, bass, violin, and keyboard, maybe electric keyboard or something. And so he wrote these as almost standalone pieces. And in the late 90s, late 90s, a Russian fellow by the name of Leonid Desyatnikov wrote a very, very cool arrangement of those said tangos, took the themes from them, and kind of made it a string orchestra version with solo violin. So it mirrored the Vivaldi Four Seasons. And what I love about what he did is that he not only made each season kind of in 3 sections. So each season you'll hear kind of a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's kind of fast, slow, fast, and just kind of mimic. There are 3 movements in all of the Vivaldi seasons. But on top of that, I think this was so creative of him, is that he quotes Vivaldi in the seasons, but he switches the hemispheres, because these are the 4 seasons in Buenos Aires. So what's summer here is winter there. So in summer of Piazzolla's 4 seasons, you might hear winter from Vivaldi, and so vice versa.
Yeah.
So if the way we did it in San Diego, with both doing Vivaldi and the Piazzolla, you could, we were making direct correlations with that. But hopefully there are themes that many of the listeners, our audience members, will know. And I did, I toyed with the idea of doing it that way, but it was just too long. It would have made the concert a little long without an intermission, because the Vivaldi is deceivingly long to play all 4 seasons.
Yeah. No, this
But
is going to be a tremendous.
I think it'll be fun. And I know many people in the orchestra have come up to me saying how much they're looking forward to playing these again. They've done it before. They've recorded it, I think, in the past. But
Right.
so it'll be fun.
Great. Yeah, and I can't wait to hear it in our hall. No disrespect to the drive-through experience in San Diego.
Yeah, I won't need a microphone.
Great. So then we come around to our friend Dvořák and the Serenade for Strings. You were talking about Strum a moment ago. We had Serenade for Winds on another program this fall already, and these are two just absolutely powerhouse chamber sized pieces that we have not played enough, frankly. So I'm really excited that it's here. I think for the first time on a classical program, actually, at the Nashville Symphony. So tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, well, this is, it's one of those pieces that I think all string probably everyone on stage next week has played since they were a teenager, because I think definitely the first movement, some last movement, like it's a very popular piece for young musicians. It's very accessible. It's funny. I was studying the score and I was like, this is actually not easy. I was like, they were having us play this when we were so little, but no, it's a very, very, I think, a well-written piece for string orchestra. I think, when I was thinking about other pieces that we could maybe do, Tchaikovsky String Serenade, there's Elgar, there's many pieces that were written for a nice string orchestra, but I love Dvořák. I love his symphonies. I think this might be one of his most popular works as well, outside of probably New World, Symphony Number 9. But he wrote it doing a very, very kind of active writing time of his career. He had just finished writing like a string quintet, and he was doing some other stuff. But he wrote this, it's 5 movements, and he wrote this in 12 days. So it kind of boggles one's mind to think about how he did that. But it's a beautiful piece in 5 movements. It kind of has everything you want. It has lyrical, it has a waltz, it has a nocturne, it has a fast last movement. It's very fun. And it's something that I think, like I said, it's something that can be done really well, I think, without no offense to conductors, but I think it can be done really well without a conductor.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, you really get to see the interplay, of the sections and the lines with this opportunity. So yeah, it'll be fun. And you're right, I think it's been popular perennially since it came out, and this has never stopped being something that we start when we're young and is still a kind of barn burner
right.
in any circumstance. So yeah, really can't.
Well, I'm glad that I'm able to actually finally put it on the classical subscription week. I'm actually surprised it was never been put there before, but there's always a first for something, right?
That's right, exactly. So yeah, and a new chance to bring it to our audience, especially with all the history that each individual player certainly has with it. It's a lot of fun. So great. Well, Jun, it's been so much fun to talk to you today and to look ahead to next week. And thank you so much for taking time to join us.
It's my pleasure, and I hope to, I hope to see a lot of people out there in the audience next week. We are all looking forward to this program, and we can't wait to see you guys.
Yes, thank you all for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next week, November 18 through 20, for Strings on Parade with Jun at the Schermerhorn Symphony Center. Find out more at nashvillesymphony.org. Thank you so much.